bottom teams and they have really practiced a specific strategy maybe and changed something to surprise. This is obviously no surprise. When you play against Sprattel, you ban Alistar.
Got to ban the cow, man. Make sure they can't get him on that very impactful champion. He was able to set up MrRallez a number of times. The Gangplank's banned away. Remember, we are still on patch 6.3, and the Fiora will follow. Steve has had some mixed success on that champion.
Well, still, like, this is kind of the problem for Elements, because when they started out well in the first 2 weeks, it was Alistar and Fiora in almost every game. Ever since first 2 weeks, teams are like, well, let's just target ban them. We don't have to care about the general OPs always. I mean, obviously, okay, Fiora and Alistar fits into that bill, but other teams are fine leaving them open. Against Element, you just ban them every single time. Overall, pick and ban-wise, there's no surprise. Lulu is open if Elements wants to pick it for Eika. I think it could be a fine pick for him, but then again, it's not necessarily that high priority when Giacomo is out.
Yeah, it makes complete sense with the Kog'Maw being banned. Neither of these AD carries has had the chance to pick it up. Kalista is also taken off the board. That's another thing we expect to be very prioritized. So it's no surprise we see the Lucian. These are going really fast, though. The Corki's picked up. The Graves still powerful. And Trick deciding on his jungler here with the Braum. No, Braum is not locked in yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they take it here. Showing
his Udyr, the champion he lost on against H2K and had honestly a game where Udyr did absolutely nothing except for one team fight. But with Elements, normally Graves wouldn't be picked this early. He's fallen quite out of favor for a lot of junglers. We still see him top lane from time to time. He's still an okay jungle pick if you want physical damage in the jungle. But Gragas has kind of really taken his place. If when Nidalee is banned, Gragas is often the guy you aim for. Yeah. This to me, those signals the Elements are looking for a poke siege comp. And because they have Corki mid lane most likely, or another AP mid lane and then Corki AD carry, they wanted physical damage, so they had to pick the Graves early. And we know also Steve can play top, so it is technically a flex pick for Elements.
That is true. I mean, Gilius hasn't actually picked it up this split, despite it being available a number of times. And it does go back to that point. Elements is a team that is very easy to ban out. We see these players focusing, tunneling on your comfortable picks. We talked about Steve's Fiora. We've talked about Eika a little bit off screen. We were talking about his Morgana, his Victor play. And wave clear champions like Krepa was talking about, very, very popular for them. And there you go, the Graves is going top because we've got an Elise lock in, another Gilius special.
So it's gonna be Steve getting his Graves one more time up in top lane. Last time it was a Rammus pick that was picked into it because Elements like to show very early. It's interesting with Elements pick and man phase, they often like to leave the last pick for Eika, despite him playing a lot of control mages, like Morgana, like Victor as you mentioned. I would often prefer last picking for my top laner then, if I'm just going to play control mage, because you know PerkZ will most likely pick an Ahri, a LeBlanc, or Lissandra, something that can pressure you in lane and set up, especially after level 6, set up kills on your mid laner. We know he likes to play that style, and you're probably still going to pick a control mage into it, but now you're just saving it for last pick and therefore not really hiding what Steve is playing top.
Yeah, and the Lissandra ends up being what they finally lock in. They take the Poppy, of course, for Kikis as well. It is probably a breath of fresh air, though, for Elements, since the last time these two did face off, that was their first game of the split, and that was when PerkZ just went massive on Ahri and completely shut down Eika's Rise play. 1-6-1 was his final score of that game. And take a look at this, though, something a little bit different for them, the Zilean lock-in.
So, Zilean mid lane, we've seen it a few times now across the world as well. Not from Elements. Mainly Nukedoc, been playing it here in Europe, obviously GBM over in NA and so on. I have mixed feelings about Zilean as a pick when he's not locked into a composition that is very good at diving onto the enemy team. Because I think he's awesome when you have the likes of a Poppy who can dive the backline and go completely ham and play super aggressive and they get the Zilean ulti. And once you revive, again, you come up as a very strong bruiser who takes a lot of time to kill. When he's with all these squishies, it often becomes a lot about, is the other team purely focusing one target? Then Zilean will shine, because like if Lissandra ultis one target and Poppy charges the same target and Lucian focuses that one target, Zilean will do well. But often when there's so many squishies, in fights, multiple members are taking damage. Multiple members are about to die because you are also squishy, because they're different carries on the other lineup, and then Zilean ulti becomes very difficult to use because you only save one guy. And it's like a kite back comp now for Elements. So I don't always feel like you can utilize Zilean 100%, but they're obviously trying to rely on the fact that it's a Lissandra going in, she tries to pop a target, Zilean will ulti that target, and then they can try and turn it around from there.
Well, we'll have to see if they can make this one work. It's a complicated one. Elements have been hard-pressed to find some success this year. Will G2 run away with it? We know that they have a tendency, or they have shown that they can pretty much grasp defeat from the jaws of victory. Elements are going to be hoping on that one. But why don't you guys tell us, hop on Twitter, @LL Esports, hashtag G2win, hashtag EL win as we get ready to kick off Coaches Week here in Europe. And the cheer goes up as G2 and Elements get ready to take the rift.
Let's play a game, Pyra. Let's see what G2 and Elements can do. Mainly G2. Last 2 weeks, G2 has gone downhill a little bit, I think it's fair to say. They lost to Vitality, they had that loss to Fnatic, which should never have been a loss. Like, that game was won at 10 minutes. And then they got so overconfident in the way they were playing. They stopped focusing on vision to very risky fights. You can't do that.
No, and when Elements have rallied too, it has been around the guy whose name is constantly chanted here in Europe. Steve, he may not have had the most impressive scores, but they're usually marching behind him. This time we'll have to face down Kikis Poppy. He has only had some middling success himself. But I do want to keep an eye on this mid lane because PerkZ and Eika are a very polarizing matchup. Yeah. Eika's come in and he just really hasn't shown anything that has impressed us. Very, very rare has he even gotten a good score, has he been able to even get close to winning lane, whereas PerkZ has come flying out of the gates on a variety of champions. He popularized the mid Corki, or at least he was one of the first to start it. This could get bloody very fast in that mid lane if Elements aren't careful.
Especially also because, like, okay, so this matchup is fine for Zilean. There's no kill pressure before 6, and that's where Zilean can often survive it because of his own ulti.
Lane swap spotted.
See what happens top.
It's a bit late to react to this one. Steve might have a rough time to start. Emperor and Hybrid are going to chase very deep. No need to get the deep vision as they already know what they'll be up against for the time being.
I like the play though from G2 in the case. They're just seeing, is it going to be 2v2 top against Corki Thresh? Then we want to stop a camp early on, or do we just want to spot where Steve and Gilius are starting, and then we can force them on the other side of the map because it's a lane swap anyway. So this means now the Trick, even though he's starting on his own blue buff on safe side, can now just walk into the enemy jungle and take a red buff and trade. So it's just going to be a normal push in the lane swap. No camp though, that's the only thing you sacrifice if you're G2, so you're going to be slightly behind in experience in that case. You saw on the bottom side, MrRallez and Sprattel got Braum, but they even gave level 2 to Sprattel, and he's now ganking mid early on. PerkZ doesn't expect this one.
No, he doesn't. He's only going to get one bomb down, but he's very low trading, and now Sprattel flashes. The hook is flashed away from by PerkZ, so one summoner traded for one in that mid lane. PerkZ, though, he's got to be careful about pushing up. He's going to back early.
So Sprattel knows here that if he does flash hook here, it's going to be flashed as well by PerkZ, 100%. So he's just going to trade flashes with the mid laner. When I do see that play, I do like to see a Mad Life, because you know the guy is going to flash it this early on in the game. Trying to predict where he's going with the flash. Obviously, he could have gone over the wall potentially, and then you wouldn't have hit it anyway. But Sprattel with early roam, he got Grom for level 2. Walks in, and then we just back to the very, very standard swap. Graves actually does really well in lane swaps. People don't think so. They're like, oh, it's an AD carry. AD carry-ish type, whatever. You just lane swap on him, and he's useless. No, because he pushes towers extremely fast with his shotgun. And then in long lanes, he's very, very good at, first of all, playing safe, but also being able to chase you down and punish you.
Yeah. And G2, they're the ones with the jump start on this, but they actually have to back away as the minion wave ran out. And it looks like Elements might be able to get this one a little bit quicker, just about the same time. See if they can't get this one bounced away. Eika taking the worst of a trade on those Thunderlords procs, but he does get the bomb down. We have seen some very successful Zileans. You mentioned GBM. Eika will be hoping to channel him this game as he faces off against PerkZ. Towers are traded. Everything very, very normal and standard here, but we'll see who stays in the top lane. For the time being, for G2, it is Kikis as Elements duo lane heads up to the top.
And none of the teams getting a... Oh, sorry, for G2's side, not a perfect bounce for them, and I think Kikis is just going to try and push it out. He's expecting MrRallez to go top now anyway, so just get some CS experience and then leave. Now that you know MrRallez is showing up, you can see him now on the map. But the same for bottom lane, where because Elements were a little bit faster, they sent out Gilius first of all to push tower, so it's a 4v0. And the Graves we talked about hitting with the shotgun did allow Steve to get like 4 or 5 extra seconds, which can often be 2, 3, 4 more CS. And you can actually see the difference here. So Steve can be happy with the start. And now it's just about pushing the next one. We've been here before, Pyro. We've seen this swap.
Oh, yeah. Very, very standard stuff. And, you know, it's the start of the week. We talked about the uncertainty that these teams have had. G2, even though they sit at the top of the standings, they themselves have had a bit of a unexpectedly rough time against some of the teams, against Fnatic, where they were winning pretty much the entire game. In terms of gold, especially until they lost.
They were still ahead in gold.
They were
when
ahead
the game
at the
was
very end,
over.
but then they got ace. It doesn't matter. Elements, on the other hand, I mean, everything counts. I know this sounds cliche, but obviously when you're trying to avoid the relegation zone, Elements historically as an organization haven't gotten much better than 7th. you need to be able to take out at least somebody who's above you. You can't just be beating up on the people at the very bottom of the table. They pretty much have none of them left except Splice.
Yeah, I guess that's basically the question for Elements. Are they aiming for playoffs? Or are they happy just making number 7 and have a long holiday? Get ready for summer and then try again if you can make playoffs. But
yeah.
It's obviously tricky when there's such a big gap between bottom 4 and top 6 we've seen in the LCS. This is definitely not the game the way Elements are saying, we gotta win this game, you know. Like, if we don't win this game, it's disappointing. No. It's when they play the bottom 4.
But they're also gonna play it out safely too. And this is the thing, like, Elements, as the towers are traded once again, Rift Herald's gonna get started up by them. Elements, once they secure this one, should be able to try and push down a little bit harder with that extra attack speed that they give the minions. It's given over to Gilius, and see how he impacts these lanes.
So now you take Rift Herald with this. I really like to see the support in jungle then go bot lane with the AD carry. Because the other team just took the tier 1 tower. You can see Kikis on your minimap is farming where the tier 1 died from Element's side. So you know that wave is going to be built up slowly because Kikis wants it to bounce towards him and slow push towards him. So often you have like 2 waves on top of each other. Buff them up with the Rift Herald, and you can very often fast push down for the enemy tier 2 on the bottom side and be a lot faster than they are because you got the Rift Herald buff. And then you can see if you can take a tier 2 tower and then maybe go back and defend your top one. I like to see that play. Gilius is on the bottom side. So if he does go down and join MrRallez, they can try and rush him for that tier 2 tower. And if G2 doesn't react, they might be too slow.
Well, unfortunately for Gilius, he was spotted by that blue, trinket, pink ward. Wow.
Pink blue trinket
Pink
ward?
Blue trinket. I've gotten all my colors mixed up. So they knew he was there. Obviously, PerkZ got out of mid lane very quickly, but now they are moving towards the bottom side. Just what you said.
I like
Sprattel on the roam with them as well, and there's no one here to push this back.
But you can see the reaction from Element and from G2 is, okay, we have a wave now that is slow pushing towards us. We're not going to try and push it out and trade because we have the Rift Herald as well.
Nice double bomb.
So recall already happened from Emperor. He's now going to go bot lane and he's going to catch that wave, and that's what Element's spot as well. So the play's off. But it's just about giving yourself the opportunity to make that play. When you didn't see the reaction from the other team, you can say, okay, it's not going to happen. Emperor is on his way. Hybrid is on his way. They're going to defend. Gilius is still setting up a trap in here.
I don't think he wants Hybrid. A little bit too much tank for him to handle. Emperor clears out the trinket of Sprattel as he replaces it, or rather, Sight Ward.
The green trinket ward thingy?
Yes. So you can't buy those green wards anymore. Gilius and Sprattel waiting in the wings to see if they can get a catch on
the pink ward doesn't see it.
No, it's not happening. MrRallez is trying to bait this a little bit here. Let's see. Oh, they know he's there now.
Wait, they saw the ward in place,
yeah.
Surely. Or unless they were just around the corner and they didn't actually see the placement of it. Because they don't see it with the pink ward there. So, trying to set up a small trap. Elements again, the original play never really happened. Dragon is then a second option you can always go for. I like to get it this early because now the second dragon and fourth dragon are better. The 5 dragon strategy is stronger to go for. It is still not the best when we compare to taking towers and so on.
No, but they're not losing anything for it, right? They did the same thing with Rift Herald. They took advantage of their numbers temporarily on the top side, and they were able to pick up an advantage. They were able to do it again here. They may be behind in the gold, but that's very, very slight right now. It's a very even game because no team, or rather G2 especially, are not really trying to make a very aggressive play. And at the moment, I feel like they're giving up unnecessary things to Elements.
Well, I mean, they lost the dragon because Elements made the push on bottom side. G2 were happy to saying, you know what, we just want to catch farm. Because Kikis had been denied a little bit, and then he had to go top compared to Steve early on. And he just wanted to push out safely. Steve is still going to get ahead in CS, but honestly, I think for G2, they were fine with this. Obviously not great for them, but they were a bit slower on the play. Oh, Gilius, beautiful cocoon. Timing with the claw coming in. But still, it's what happens when you're just like slightly behind in tempo, how fast you can kill the tower. You often have to accept that the other team will then make a move first, and you just have to react to that move. And therefore, you often have to surrender just a little bit. Losing early dragon is not the end of the world.
That's very true.
As long as they kept even in farm and experience, that's what they were aiming for.
Yeah. G2 for themselves. Definitely focusing fairly heavy around this bottom side at the moment, but you of course still have Kikis trying to 1v1 versus Steve. Kikis, this is a guy we haven't really seen play a lot of carry champions. He has one Poppy game under his belt. Of course, it was a win versus Splice a couple weeks ago, but overall he's been much more focusing on those big tanks. We'll see if that really starts to turn in his favor as he takes the hammer to Steve. Trades well.
And that's the funny thing about Poppy. I mean, technically she is a tank. See PerkZ mid though.
Yeah, a bit of an off tank.
He's trying to bait the ulti from Eika. so he can go in the second time, but Eika has cleanse as well, so he's like super defensive. He's very squishy with this build though. Tier into large rod. Not going for Rod of Ages for Eika. Just gonna stack that one up, wanna aim for even more when it comes to his scaling.
Yay.
Fully stacked tier,
Gilius.
big mana pool. Gilius is looking for a gank.
Not a lot of minions there.
TP and perks, remember. So you always have to think about that when you're ganking a side lane.
There he goes. There's the Poppy wind-up, and Gilius is splatted outside of the range, so he gets himself nice and safe using only that ultimate here. Steve a little bit low on this one. He wouldn't want to start pushing in solo, so he'll have to back away, and second tier is defended. So 2-2 in towers, of course, at this 10-minute mark because of the trades back and forth. Very standard stuff when neither team wants to set up any crazy dives. G2, you know, we call them kind of, at least I call them the YOLO team. Out of all the top tier teams, Vitality, HDK, the more sit and wait. Unicorns are kind of a little bit back and forth. But they're the ones that typically are making all these crazy moves. Right now, feel like they're changing their mentality a bit, especially after that Fnatic game last week. I
mean, that's what we got to see, right? Because the game after they played Fnatic was a stomp, like we normally see from G2 against one of the bottom 4 teams on Friday, or last Friday. But yeah, they are a team who's very focused on always moving forward, never really moving back. It's always like, can we make a play here? Can we set up a fight? Can we, you know, gank with trick when teams don't expect it? And it's something that's good for them, but also can be bad. Emperor getting flash. Gilius trading flash for flash, and we can already see what G2 wants to do with their comp. Very standard 1-3-1. You have double teleport, no surprise. Move perks to the side lane as early as possible. Once you push in the wave here, it's so risky for Elements to start making plays on the other side of the map because of teleport from perks, compared to whoever is sitting and defending against them without TP. Like now it's MrRallez. G2 honestly should have been ready to contest this Rift Tail. They could have gotten a very good fight right here. But Emperor had moved to the bottom side because of his flash. But like that was literally like a perfect opportunity. You had TP perks on the bottom side versus MrRallez. You had members around the Rift Tail. If G2 had been faster to react, they would have moved in, stopped the Rift Tail, and tried to set up a TP play from perks and gotten a 5v4.
Yeah, a little bit curious that they're just not pulling the trigger on these moves right now.
Kikis
3 members in the mid.
Emperor had gone down to the bottom side. They were just a little bit out of position, honestly.
Yeah, at least they're starting to hit these powerful levels, though, to a degree. You know, the Sunfire Cape finished up for Kikis right now. You have the Abyssal Scepter now finished up for perks. A little bit more power in their pocket. You're still waiting on the Essence Reaver for Lucian. But roaming boots completed for the Braum. Still very, very valuable, those boots of swiftness. And Trick steals away himself, the Gromp. Perks on the bottom side. They're just kind of trying to push out, feel the wave here, and make sure that Elements can't really get a catch on him, trying to wait out some of that Elise power. Maybe not get themselves pincered by the Corki and the Graves, but there just isn't any move, any reaction from Elements either.
The best way to play against Elements is playing 1-3-1 comps. Because the biggest weakness of Elements is understanding how to set up a play. Elements will always wait for you to make a move and then try and counter it. They still don't understand as a team. Talk about after, because let's see what happens. Okay, nothing cut. Yeah. Anyway.
Keep on going.
Elements as a team, they don't understand how to set up side waves. So with that I mean, in order to create a play, if you don't have a split pushing composition, you want to push out your side lanes, at least on the other side, push the wave to the other side of the map, so towards the enemy team, and then move from the side lane. Like, so you group in mid lane as an example. After you push the side lanes and you run in mid, so when the other team is going down to catch the waves near their own towers, near their own jungle, then you can hit the mid tower, or you can force a 5 versus 5 fight around the mid tower. But Elements are very, very bad at actually setting up these side lanes. They will always wait for you to push them down towards them, and that's why 1-3-1 combo always shine, because it means it can push the waves and then instantly just teleport away from you. And Elements will never get a 5v5. They'll get like a 3v5 and a 4v5, and that's not in favor of them.
Gilius narrowly securing the blue. And yeah, it goes down to what speaking of Gilius, what he's really not been doing. You haven't seen him hang around in these lanes. With the 2 times he's gotten the Rift Herald, he actually has spent so little time in lane trying to help them push down. They just keep moving around trying to get picks off on this 1-3-1.
And just look at the minimap right now. MrRallez is still down on his side of the lane. Steve has just finally pushed up the wave mid to the middle of the lane. And Kikis is just going ham on him.
Yeah, there's the ultimate collateral damage burned as well as the Keeper's Verdict. But Kikis comes off way better for that one. And instantly, 3 G2 members, they just start on this dragon. They've got enough damage. No one in position. Elements, they can't react, and that's all even on Drakes.
Elements hasn't gone past the river the last 2 or 3 minutes. So again, when you play a composition that has to group up to be very useful with the Zilean, with the Corki, to actually pressure G2 on their towers and force a fight that way, and allow yourself to poke with Zilean bombs into a Thresh hook or Elise cocoon, like the CC chain Elements does have in like one hook, leads into a cocoon, leads into double bomb from Zilean. That's enough to kill a target, but it requires you to stay together as a group and do it. But they haven't gone past the river for the last 3-4 minutes. Yeah. So G2 are able to just constantly push out waves with the double TP and say, well, Elements, you're never going to group. Like, you're never going to get your chance to do this. And it's just a matter of time before we push in every lane, and then we move into your jungle, set up our vision, and then we start just diving you. Right? With Lissandra, Gragas, Poppy, we just start diving you and kill you.
And that's another question. How well are they even going to be able to fight when they group up? We talked about this a little bit in the picks and bans. They looked like they were setting up for a poking comp, a very lightweight comp that can dish a lot of damage but can't take a lot back. Yeah. If G2 start rolling ahead, rolling forward, that familiar snowball, Elements should just crumble under this pressure unless they can get some catches, and they just haven't been able to do anything. We're approaching 16 minutes, no first blood in all of this.
And Steve going for Death's Dance. Not an item we see that often in the European LCS. Instead of the Ghost Blade Rush we normally see.
Yeah, very uncommon actually.
So one of the reasons for this, and one of the things I like about the item, is if you are against like comps with a lot of burst, so against the Lissandra, it is very good because you turn some of the damage into a bleed instead, and you have the Zilean to save you when you're bleeding out to die, or when you're bleeding about to die, he can ulti you. This is one of the plays, by the way, we talked about with G2. It's just a matter of time before putting pressure on the tower, but I actually didn't like that play. Because this time around, they have allowed Elements to finally push bottom lane, and Elements just take a very easy tower. When you have the entire map control, you're not looking to trade towers. You're looking to force a play where you gain something and the other team don't gain anything.
Yeah, definitely a misstep for them, spending too much investment up in the top side. They finally will get that second tier tower, but gave it up completely free, and they also gave up control of their bot side jungle. Look at how many wards they had invested there. Now Elements safely move up the quick way into mid. Gilius is spotted by a blue trinket, but it doesn't really matter. Only PerkZ is here to defend. However, Elements, they could be in danger of getting collapsed on. Pings are going in for G2, and Elements know they need to beat it.
Definitely not a fan of that play here. Emperor was sitting top side, even though that was double TP from G2. Just put your Lucian mid. Put him mid lane, let him sit there. He can always call in the wave if needed, and just play the side lanes with your double TP. So it's a lot more effective if you want to set up these plays, because once you have control of the two side lanes, again, moving into the enemy jungle becomes so much easier. And that forces whoever's wave clearing mid lane for Elements to play more passive. Because if Lissandra is sitting bot and she suddenly disappears into your jungle and you don't see her anymore, you're not going to push your lane in mid. You're obviously going to go back to your tower and be like, well, there's a chance I'm going to get killed now. So I have to sit on the tower. That means Emperor can push first and allow G2 to also get control of mid lane. So I didn't like the assignments there from G2, also resulting in a trade. Elements finally getting past the river.
Yeah, they're definitely having some growing pains, I think, trying this composition out. It's just such a different style we're seeing from G2. They're typically one of the most bloody teams we see in the European LCS, one of those stats we like to track, how many kills and assists they have at a certain point in time. This is just a massive outlier game for them, facing off against Elements here. I don't know if it comes from, I mean, you say respect, but this is one of the bottom tier teams.
Well, I mean, it comes down to also being a lane swap, and like that's what happens in lane swaps. Lane swaps are not like unique, they're not special. There's a very set, I'm going to call it almost a schedule. You have to follow in a lane swap and go like, okay, at minute 1, here's what we need to do. At minute 2, here's what we need to do. At minute 3, here's what we need to do. We have to like be at the tower at this point. We have to kill the tower at least by this point, and then move on and move on, move on. So when you play G2, who normally does really well in the laning phase, I do like to see teams lane swap on them. Because it does mean you trade even, or you should trade even in the early game, and you don't risk falling behind two strong laners. So I think Elements has played this game correct in that way, in lane swapping. Yeah. And we see both teams kind of having a strategy prepared against each other. One team is happy playing the lane swap game. Another team is happy playing the 1-3-1 because you're against Elements, who, again, as I said, are not very good at playing side lanes.
Yeah, very much just a tit for tat back and forth, but no serious action that might change as Steve is caught by Kikis. A lot of damage dealt to him with that hammer. Gets the knockup on the Keeper's Verdict. In comes Trick. That's going to be it. First blood. Oh, not yet, because Eika gets the ultimate on, and he's pulled back to safety. Kikis and Trick bombs on each of them. They will look to take the turret. Zilean denies that first blood. We're almost 20 minutes in, still hasn't happened here. The tower will fall in the mid. That's the number 4 for G2, so they even out with Elements.
And yeah, only one teleport for G2. That's on PerkZ. Going in again.
Oh, big ultimate. Now PerkZ comes in just a half second too late. Hair trigger there as they decide to try to get the action going. PerkZ takes one bomb, not a second. Blade backwards into the box. Sprattel taking a lot of damage. PerkZ has to frozen tomb himself, and that's going to be first blood. It's picked up by Steve. Looking for more. Gets himself a double. That's 2 for 0. Emperor now running from Gilius, and Elements have made a power move as Baron spawns on. Gilius looking for some blood, and he should be able to secure it right outside the Baron pit, unless Emperor can't get the outplay. Spider's too explosive as RallEz goes in. It's one thing after another. Why not? Kikis on the run now. 3 members down. Elements didn't lose a man and all of that.
And they're going to get mid-tower. Yeah, so many things here for Elements. Again, G2. They were playing only on 2 lanes. They were once again actually allowing RallEz to have a push on one side lane and get to a tower. They had only 1 teleport, as we mentioned, and they were setting up a fine play mid at first. Got that ulti from Eika, and then took mid-town. That could have been enough, but they wanted more. Let's see what happens because they're going in.
Oh, big Braum ulti now. All of a sudden, Elements a little bit too low. Overstay their welcome. It's Sprattel who's going to pay the price for this one, but Hybrid's low on his health as well. Trick picks up a revenge kill. 1 to 3 is now the total. It's just broken wide open after the latest first blood we've had here in Europe.
Here.
PerkZ around the side. They may not need a big barrel once again. That's how long this has gone back and forth. Eika's got the ult on himself, Chrono Shift, but he's not down. It's PerkZ. Claws down 1. Takes out Steve. Forces the flash of RallEz, and Eika's getting hunted. Trick a lot of damage on him. Speedy Zilean, but can they kill him? Looking for him. Kikis sends the hammer flying. It's Corki who's out, but not dead. And Emperor will pick up a kill to answer it all. Some hectic action after 20 minutes of movements around the map.
Yeah, and we normally say that G2, they only understand one thing. That's like moving forward. That's exactly what they did before. After getting that ulti from Eika, they're like, guys, let's just go for dive. We 5 members hit, only 3. They jump in. It's a good engage from Trick, but the follow-up is not coordinated. PerkZ needs to go in with the claw when Trick is jumping in already, so he's there instantly. He came in very late. That cost them the dive. Sets up a few kills for Elements. But then we see Elements do exactly the same. After they actually get the kills, get mid-tower, they overstay and push in for another tower. And then G2 gets to respond. Gilius didn't have the Baron to jump to, so has to just flash over.
Despite the mistakes, though, this is one of the better displays we've seen from Elements as this replay continues. It was one continuous act of aggression.
Hey, remember Elements' composition wants you to attack them so they can kite backwards. Even better on a tower. Like here, Elements should just stop. Like you don't want to go for another tower. You're against teleports. You take that mid tower tier 1 and you just back away. Because now you actually gave G2 a chance to get something back. This could have looked really bad for G2 instead. Kikis teleports in, PerkZ teleports in, and you're too low with your Elements to fight here. It's tough though because you get super hyped. You get like 3-4 kills, it's all looking great, you're yelling, just go forward, and then you realize you overstepped.
And then Trick had his ultimate already back up, so that whole duration, it starts with one bad big barrel, and then comes in with a really good one, and they managed to just take out even more off of it. So 3 to 4 is the kill total. Elements are looking to start this dragon as we come back into real time. But G2 are looking to fight it. Kikis has found Steve around the side. Sprattel taking a full culling to the face, or the back of the head, I should say, as he gets a hook in. Hammer sends the Spider flying. And Kikis gets himself a kill. Exhaust is on. Very low. Has to be careful here. Blowback, not enough there. Kikis still hanging out, and PerkZ was body blocking from the collateral damager after the rockets, rather. So Elements lose 1, but it's only their support. They start up the dragon again, and G2 look to stop them.
Elements playing that fight very scared, despite having ulti from Eika this time. Some low members didn't go, but didn't want to use the ulti on Sprattel.
There we go, smite it away.
Gets the dragon, though, the second dragon Elements.
They get the tower burn available to them. Let's see if they can start pushing on this and sieging. Still, you have seen how squishy they can be, especially when they face off against a full health G2.
Yeah, we do see again some adaptations then for Elements in the item builds, because they know they are so squishy. We talked about the build from Steve before, Death Dance as well, so good for their sustain with Braves. When this comes to like pure physical damage, giving you HP back, and then as we talked about, that bleed effect against some of the burst from G2. Bleed effect will negate some of it, and yes, you will take the damage over time, but that's where the Zilean ulti will shine. Sterex Gauge, we're gonna see probably more Primordials from him as well. And he just becomes that really weird champion to play against, because you look at aggression, you're like, he should be squishy, right? We should be able to burst him down, but then like double shield is proccing and the bleed effect and everything, and suddenly he actually becomes quite tanky. And still being able to deal a lot of damage. He's a very strong bruiser in that sense.
Yeah, not to mention the Merc Treads too. It'll be hard for them to lock him down for a large amount of time.
So Steve will be like the front line in some sense. And
he's
then
the tank of this team.
You're going to get Locket from Sprattel. You're going to get Gilius building tank as well. And then you suddenly, that's how you kind of try and make up for it.
Yeah. Of course, Gilius hasn't quite gone that route just yet. He's starting to with the Giant Spell.
Oh, Abyssal is good fun.
Yeah, that's true. But he's also, of course, got the Runic Echoes of seeing it fairly common. And Steve is taking a little bit more damage. He sends the collateral damage out onto Kikis, but the hammer just keeps on coming. Meanwhile, Eika is running Forward into Trick before he flashes, not quite enough time, and Steve gets outplayed by Kikis. I guess it wasn't too hard when he took the hammer to the head too many times. G2 now trying to force down mid. Might turn their attention towards bottom side, but Kikis is already backing away.
Look at MrRallez again.
Still side push.
They're just saying to MrRallez, and we have double TP, we don't care about what lane you're pushing, we're just gonna go straight mid. You have double TP, so you have a guy sitting in that lane, and when MrRallez is pushing, you just make a play and you TP in. Instead of letting him constantly push it down over and over. This time they got a mid tower for it, because Elements lost Steve, so they couldn't defend. But like, it's very fun to see how they're just allowing MrRallez 3 times now to push his side lane. He has gotten 2 towers from it. Didn't get anything here. Again, Steve died, so it was bad for Elements because Steve went down. And obviously that's one of the issues. You don't have any armor penetration in this build here for Steve against a Poppy who's currently sitting on 226 armor, 25 minutes in. Great scaling W from Poppy.
Shotgun shells are just going to start bouncing off. And MrRallez is Corki too, though. I get why they're trying to split with him. If there's anybody that's safe on this team, it's mostly MrRallez. Not only has he shown that in his performance, he's got himself a lot of safety. He might need it here, and in comes the Braum ulti. Eika and MrRallez are caught and locked up. Even with that, he's gone down. Gilius and Sprattel knocked up by the big Poppy hammer. Steve coming late to the party. Gilius trying to flash away, manages to get it. Steve gets the collateral onto PerkZ and takes him out to make it a 1-for-1 here. Let's see if G2 can find any more. Sprattel on the run, and they traded even. I cannot believe how that went.
Well, Steve again, he's going in.
Yeah, Emperor realized that wasn't the best thing to take, and he backs out, quickly flashing away. 4 members of Elements now looking to march down that mid lane. Bombs are flying from Eika. They go sideways into this jungle. They turn themselves over for Baron right here? I don't think so.
A little bit too risky. No one can really tank it from Elements. It's still 4v4. Trick is full HP. Kick is close to. Steve has been getting a few kills just by sniping people with his ulti.
Oh, Kikis steps too far forward, shut down. Steve will finally find the kill for that one. Step too far forward into the spider trap. As Elements now eyeball this Baron. 40 seconds left on Kikis, but PerkZ has just come up. No teleports available for G2.
Still a bit risky, Pyro. Well, let's see. There's ulti for Eika, so that's a good thing. Gilius is fairly low. G2 is just staying around. Like, yes, you can see Elements are actually very afraid doing this Baron.
Oh, that's a big calling. Oh, they got to move out of it. MrRallez takes the package up to Trick here. They want to try to get even more pickoffs as they can. Chasing, forcing the auto attacks, and Trick actually has to turn him around. He's at half his health right now. So they don't manage to secure the Baron, don't manage to get any kills, but G2 will be able to clear vision outside of the pit.
And we kind of reset the map again. Because we just had a big fight, ended in a few kill for Elements. I think G2 picked up a single one. Let's see this double TP engage. So to get that AoE damage we talked about earlier, where Zilean, it can be hard for him when there's multiple members and everyone is so squishy and everyone is taking damage. But the rest of G2 is not really able to commit on the other members, and Steve with the snipe on PerkZ, and then just full disengage from Elements, and then setting up a trap. But it's super interesting to me that G2 has a comp that will do so well in pushing 1-3-1. We've seen Kikis solo kill Steve 1v1. Nobody can handle PerkZ, and yet all G2 is looking at is for some reason team fights. Just constantly, let's just 5 versus 5. So Elements have been able to play their composition without even technically doing that much themselves, because it's been G2 just forcing fights on them. Now to get Emperor.
Yep, or this time it's forcing a cat. Emperor is evaporated by Steve, and now the red buff's in contest. His Trick will be able to smite it away, but this is what you're talking about. Elements, they force you to make these mistakes because G2 are not respecting the damage that they have. They're not respecting the 5v5 that they have.
G2 is just completely misplaying their own composition.
They did the same thing against Fnatic, though.
And it's that thing, when you go into a game, you gotta look at the enemy team's composition and say, like, how does this team win? Like, what's the win condition for Elements? And then you gotta play around that. You don't want to play into it. You want to play around it and say, okay, so they clearly want to group together. You're gonna have a strong team fight. If we single out one target, Eika will save it, and they have a lot of pick potential because of Thresh and Elise and double bomb from Zilean. So what you want to avoid is, as we said, bump into these 5-on-5s over and over and over, because it becomes very difficult for you then to win. It's not impossible though, because G2 actually has a pretty good team fighting comp themselves. It's just the way Elements can win the game, and you are giving Elements the chance to win these fights instead of just playing the map and saying you can't do anything to defend both side lanes.
And this is big for Elements. They can secure a dragon here, although it was almost stolen away by Trick as Elements turn around looking for Kikis here, and in comes Trick to launch the big barrel, trying to knock him away, but they stay together. Steve taking half a culling, but he's perfectly fine, as tanky as he is on that Graves. No one goes down in this fight. Didn't even need the Eika ultimate. And Elements, if they can pick up a win here, this is absolutely massive for them to try to move themselves up in the standing and maybe, just maybe, contest for playoffs.
Yeah, that puts a lot of pressure on Origin and Fnatic to continue winning. Obviously, Fnatic later today plays Match of the Week against H2K. Because suddenly, you might have a team like Elements and even Splice moving closer and closer and potentially pushing you out of that player spot. That's obviously not something we're expecting just yet, but it is a good game from Elements, and we're seeing a G2 lineup that struggled the last 2 weeks, have lost to some of the other top teams.
I lost to Fnatic as well.
Yeah, lost to Fnatic. And it's a team that in some way, I want to say, have stopped progressing. And instead of building on what they had that was so good in the start, they're kind of just stuck to the same thing and not really try to improve it. And now every other team is getting better and better. It happens every season. Teams suck coming into the split. Then they practice and practice and practice and watch replays and watch other regions and they pick up a lot of things and get better and better and better towards playoffs. So if you're a team who started out well but then didn't really understand how to improve, well, these teams will catch up. Obviously not saying that Elements in a BU5 will be on the same level as G2, but a game like this has gone very different from what we expected.
Well, it's got to be a wake-up call. If the Fnatic one wasn't big enough for G2, they'll have to take a look, regardless of the outcome of this game, to see why they weren't able to do much. We're 31.5 minutes on the clock. This is the average game time that G2 have, period. Wins and losses. They're the fastest team in the European LCS, and right now, this is going to mess up their average.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be very sad about that, Pyra.
I know, it's a statistical anomaly, I know.
The teams always, they care so much about these stats and statistics.
But this is just such a weird game from them. I mean, not only are they not respecting the damage that Elements can bring and the 5v5 and the catch potential they can bring, but you're right, they're not using these double teleports. Look at the uptime. Kikis still has this, Perk still has this. They're walking very slowly, they're giving up Baron control. Yeah, they've stopped taking towers. They're falling behind in towers to Elements.
Right now, Perk should already sit top lane. There's absolutely zero reason for him to not sit top lane and push out that wave. So there's 3 waves pushing. You know Kikis is fine against Steve bot lane. Have someone push out top. When Elements sends someone up to defend that top lane, you can make a play because you have teleport. That's why you pick the summoner spell. So like Perk should have sat top lane already. Like this wave should already have died on top side. He should pick up all that farm. And it allows your team to have the tempo to be the proactive team. Instead of letting Elements actually push out. We've seen MrRallez 3 times. Push into the enemy base.
With no repercussion either. He hasn't had to use a package defense. He hasn't had to use his, he hasn't had to use his QSS to try to get out. He hasn't had to burn his flash. It's really only in these fights are they catching him and locking him down because G2 are not making proactive moves.
And we have to remember, Elements got 3 dragons now.
That's true.
This is the kind of game that can easily go 5 dragons. And if Elements are still allowed to sit on the map and push out past the river, they will keep that dragon control and they will be there first at the dragon. And then it becomes very difficult. If you are the comp that want to flank and you don't have the vision control around the objective you're fighting over, setting up these flank wards becomes almost impossible then. Because then you got to flank suddenly, like you got to TP in front of them or where they can see you and they know how to kite around you then. Well, you always want to have the surprise ward.
The damage is starting to creep up here as G2 send 3 members to try and take out this Baron. Gilius is immediately going to spot them. PerkZ is hanging around the backside. We'll see if they can get this one. It is the desperate times. Calling for desperate measures as hybrid unbreakables. Takes a lot of damage. Gilius clearing some wards that are trying to, but the Baron was still aggroed.
This is the kind of play you make if you're like, guys, what are we doing on the map? Like, what's our next move? And everyone is kind of like, not really sure what we can do anything. Okay, let's stop Baron. Elements place a ward and move into the river, and G2's like, okay, let's disengage. So again, you just bought more time for Elements, and you lost the Baron control you had before, because notice how Elements just moved in and cleared the wards. So you gained nothing, and just lost whatever wards you had on the map from doing that.
It's a lack of patience. G2, they're just making plays that they don't need to be doing, and still very even in the gold game, but Elements, their power is starting to creep up just a little bit, especially that man in the top lane, Steve. He's amassed himself some serious kills, mostly off the snipes at the end of it all, but he's sitting on 3 items plus his Mercury treads. Starting to have a lot more damage to sustain, and with the Eika chrono shift, he's going to be nigh impossible to kill.
Yeah, and that's again what Elements is hoping for. They want G2 to engage onto them, survive the engage, kite back, and then turn. Land a cocoon, land a hook, land a double bomb, and that's where you turn and you take down someone from G2 because there's not a lot of protection in that case. If PerkZ jumps in, tries to kill someone, chrono shift happens, they can burst PerkZ down. Because like he's just used the ulti offensively, if that's the case. So we're gonna see Lissandra go in instead. And most likely try and buy more time. You can self-ulti, then you can hourglass. That stops Elements from turning around for quite a while. And then you have like the Gragas, you have the Braum, you have the Puck, like a strong front line, and MrRallez taking some damage.
Oh boy, that was just one big rocket as Trick is trying to turn it around, flashing forward. Sprattel might be in trouble. They get, however, a little bit of cocoon onto PerkZ. Gilius now being chased back. Sprattel already down. G2 realizing this is the time they need to fight. Spider jukes as Gilius flashes away and turns the way they didn't expect. He should go down here though. They just need another Braum proc. Should be able to do it. Taken out. PerkZ gets the kill. Kikis goes in. Elements are only 3 members here. There's the frozen tube from PerkZ. Steve is exhausted, but he's still brave, still tanky, still doing damage, but it's not going to be enough. Finally falls down. Eika can't get his ult in time, or he'd already used it, and now Steve is back up a second time, but gets shut down. G2 find the fight they need, knocking MrRallez into the wall. He's going to be able to vault, but he's not going to live much longer. That's the ace. 35 minutes in, G2 looking to march on the base.
Yeah, very long death timers here. Wave is coming for G2. They might just be able to finish the game, and honestly, Pyra, right here we see why Elements is a bottom 14. They just took an engage they never had to take. They were out of position going for it, and G2 gets the fight they want and are now looking to finish the game.
All 5 members, they might be bleeding, but only Sprattel's here trying to put him up. Gets the 3 flay, but exhaust on PerkZ won't be enough. Sprattel, it's going to be another ace. 36 minutes in, G2 finally find the mistake after making so many of their own. They take out the Nexus. Gilius can't stop him. Nobody can stop him here, and that's going to be a victory for G2 eSports.
And as much as we were talking about how G2 were not playing correctly, and that's why Elements was still in the game, despite such a big difference in overall team level, Elements in the end, I don't know if they were feeling too confident or whatever. And I mean, G2 can be happy now, I guess, picking up that win, but they're going to look back in this game and they're going to point out a lot of situations they're like, okay, here we should do something different. This was not the correct play. Here we overextend, or the coordination was off. But like that last engage.
Yeah, that was finally what they needed to be able to take it home. And after so many, this isn't the only game where they've had to rely on a big mistake or they've had to turn something around that has just not been going in their favor. Unfortunately for Elements, they made so few mistakes relative, but they made one massive one in that catch in the later stages of the game that cost them huge. And this is why they sit lower on the table. G2...
yeah, I mean, it's harsh to say, right? It's very harsh to say, oh, this is why you're a bottom 4 team right now. But a game like this, the ending like this, is just the thing that stands out. Like, if you want to become a top team, these kind of mistakes 35 minutes into the game, they can't happen.
No.
Like, that fight was MrRallez jumping forward, trying to poke Emperor a little bit, while Gilius was still in the river near Baron, and Steve wasn't really in a position to teleport in, and they kind of like rush forward with a kite composition. A composition who wants you to engage on them and then kite backwards and then turn it.
No more spell rotation, they just got cut out.
They were the ones jumping forward. You had 3 dragons, Dragon was just alive, you could even walk down taking 4th dragon. G2 clearly didn't know what to do. Elements were in a prime position, honestly. Yeah.
Well, we say they were patient like most of this game. That was the impatience. They said, oh, we can poke him out now. We can take him out now. And then they forgot they didn't have a team fighting comp.
I mean, maybe it's again division. It's easy for us to see G2 with all the members around. And they're like thinking Emperor was alone and maybe they could catch him. But still, that's deep into the enemy jungle. This late in the game, going for a catch like that is more solo queue than professional play.
Yeah, definitely a lot of mistakes from Elements, but for G2, they, like you said, they have to review that. They have to keep looking at those games, like the Fnatic one as well, and just see why are they not playing the composition out the way they wanted to. We'll have to see. I'm sure they got a lot to say, but we're going to hear from them a little bit more.